Carol Kane stars and is an executive producer of the film Between the Temples. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. First, Carol, I have to congratulate you on all of the accolades you're receiving in the past week or so for the film.
I thank you so much. I have to say I'm stunned. I kind of haven't been able to make it real in my mind yet. It's it's a unique experience at my age to get sort of re-noticed, as it were. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's a win from the New York Film Critics Circle and a
Mhm.
nomination at the Independent Spirit Awards. What has that recognition meant for this role in particular?
Well, it's just extremely rewarding, and I love this part. And a friend of mine, who's a casting director, Sheila Jaffe, she was saying to me, "Well, this part is a gift to you, from the filmmaker," and I think it really is. It's such a big gift, and part of a giant part of that gift is working with Jason, who I know that 90% of my performance is because of being with him. So I would be happier if we were nominated for things together, but I'm extremely grateful to, have been noticed. I think it's feels like a miracle.
I know you signed on to this project to work specifically with Jason and with Nathan, and the project never really had a full script. It had some scripted scenes, some treatment. I wonder when you started actually filming and getting those scenes, day to day, was there a particular scene that really clicked for you where you felt like you finally kind of understood the tone of the film, the character? Was there a moment you remember that really kind of clicked?
I think it started at the beginning because I was lucky enough that we started shooting basically at the beginning, where I meet him. I started shooting, I should say. They were shooting before I got there. But, the scene in the bar where I meet him, I, that was the beginning. And we didn't talk about it, but I think we understood that we were safe together, me and Jason, that we could count on each other. And also that we could count on our director, Nathan Silver, to uh, be extremely disturbed if it wasn't the best it could be, which is what you want. You don't want somebody to say, "Yeah, well, that was fine. Let's move on." I mean, what? No, thank you. Just tell me if it's wrong. Let's do it again. And he would. And especially because, as you said, there was not a solid script. So take things, a lot of the dialogue would be different. The essence of this and the structure of the scene would be the same, but we could, improvise the dialogue as we went along. And so we were very dependent on him to tell us if it didn't work.
There's that beautiful shot in that opening, in that first scene we see you in from Ben's perspective, looking up at you, and the light above you creates a halo that I just think is. I was thinking back on that at the end of the film and what that opening kind of that remarkable shot of you really says about the character.
So nice. I hadn't even really noticed that, but that I think you're right. It's kind of some magical little moment, which is, I guess, what it needs to be, because it's the beginning of each of our new lives. We're changing our lives, me at my age and him at his, and that's where it's starting.
You've played so many absolutely incredible roles in your career on TV, film, theater, just remarkable. What did Carla allow you to do that perhaps you've never done before in any of the many, many opportunities you've had?
Well, I've been very lucky to have worked with many of the greatest directors that there are. I worked with Hal Ashby. I worked with Mike Nichols, was my first director. I worked with Sidney Lumet, Jacques Audiard, whose film I'm in love with. Have you seen Emile Perez?
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my God, I'm in love with that movie. And I got to do a little part in his movie. And I just got to work with Darren Aronofsky, but this is the first time, I guess, that always a great director will mine your feelings and help you mine your feelings to flesh out your character, you know. But this is the first time I not only got to do that, but also frequently put it in my own words, you know. And also, it's really great to be in a love story, which I consider this to be, and to have had the incredible good fortune to have my teammate be someone who it's easy to love.
You mentioned earlier that this is the start of a new life for both of these characters. And I think we
Mhm.
are meeting Carla at a really interesting time. Her husband has died. And there are just these moments. I think something so unspoken about the character is even though she loves her husband, how much he maybe stifled some aspects of her life. How much thought did you and Nathan give to, and Jason too, give to what her marriage was like? We don't know much about that relationship, but you know,
Hmm.
what did you talk about to kind of really go deep into the nuance of the character? Because there's so many different emotional registers you're playing at the same time.
Thank you. Oh, I appreciate you saying that. I just know, I mean, we did talk about it, and it's a big part of why the movie happens is that when I was little, I talk about when I was little and my parents didn't want me to get bat mitzvah. I was a red diaper baby, and I don't talk much about my husband, but my husband forbade it. So I know that he was largely in control in my marriage. So I have been subservient to someone else all my life until now. That's what we talked about to do with my husband. And then you meet my son, and I kind of think, which we didn't really talk about, but it's what I think, that my son is a bit of a chip off the old block, as we used to say. I think he's got some of the characteristics of my husband, and he's very judgmental, and his scope is limited, and he's not interested in expanding his point of view. And that is, you can see in the restaurant scene when anybody sees it that when I'm with my son, it's almost like I'm back in my marriage, that I give up control at that dining room table. He says he wants Jason's character to leave, and I don't say no. Or I don't say, well, if he's leaving, I'm leaving with him. I just turn into this, smaller version of myself. And that's how I think my marriage was, is that I was a smaller version of myself, which is um, something that I understand emotionally. Sometimes if you're with somebody you love, you can be diminished, sometimes. And also being like my mom was married in the 50s when the man was definitely in charge, And there's such a thing as a 50s man, and I think my husband was one of those.
You mentioned one of my favorite scenes in the film, which is when Carla's telling the story of her 13th birthday. And she has
Mm.
Ben repeat this story to her. Um,
Isn't that remarkable?
I love
That
that
was
scene.
Nathan. That was Nathan, who just said, you got to make sure he does it exactly how you said it. Like he has to be me.
And I just love too the way you play it because when you notice that he has actually been paying attention to what
Yeah.
you've said, there's such an emotional resonance in that scene. How did that make
Thank
you
you so
feel to
much.
play it?
I was so relieved that he heard me. That's what I remember mostly, is that I felt that a great burden had been lifted off my shoulders, that a man heard me.
Yeah, so beautifully performed and written. I don't know how much of that was actually scripted or what you and Jason found, but just a beautiful scene.
I think mezzo mezzo, you know.
And Nathan too is he has such a unique like film sense and visual style.
Yeah.
So many close-ups in this film.
Well, and let's talk about our DP, our cinematographer, Sean. He is so remarkable. We have talked a lot about the fact that he is a character in the film. Now, Nathan and he work just so beautifully together, like a dance together. But um, Sean, because it was improvised, you know, there were frequently unexpected moves and unexpected emotions, and Sean had to just be in there with us. That's why we say he's another character. He had to be in the scene with us in order to know where to be, because that changed, and he did it. And the most sort of obvious example of that is the scene where Jason's character goes to sleep upstairs in my son's room, and I tell him that I'll be right downstairs if he needs anything, and then I just lie down on the floor and don't leave the room. Well, that was not planned, and most DPs would say, no, I didn't know she was going to do that. I have to relight for that spot. I have to get the focus for that spot. But he just went with it. And there it was. So he's a big part of that scene.
I think it gives the film so much authenticity, um, to not maybe not strive for that perfection or to recalibrate depending on what you and Jason are doing. And their use of close up is so interesting in this film. I mean, it's so prominent. Do you know, like, are you scene to scene paying attention to where exactly the camera is, or are you just letting them capture what they're going to capture and performing
I mean,
it?
I am aware of where the camera is because it's hard not to be, but I am trying very much not to try and control where it is or focus on where it is. Because if I do that, then forget it. I'm out of my character. So I recognized early on that it's going to be where it's going to be, and that we're going to be partners and we're going to be dancing. It's going to be fluid. And if I can't accept that, I can't be in the movie.
Let's talk about the dinner scene at the end of the film,
Oh,
which is in many ways the climax of the film. First, I just want to ask you about the process. How long did that take to shoot? Because it is so complex. There's so many different shots, so many characters. I mean, how many hours, days? How
okay,
intensive was
two
that?
nights. Nights, by the way, all night long, you know. And there were three cameras. And when Nathan talks about it, he talks about the fact that it became so complex because there was, you know, Chris and he had written the outline for the scene with some dialogue, which is the way it came down, like sort of the night before, 2 nights before we'd get the scene, but then it would change when we did it. But then it became the most interesting thing because each of these characters, with each of their strong personalities and wants out of the situation, which are all so different, each of the actors began really standing up for their character's point of view and fighting for it, which meant that it had to be shot so many different ways because Nathan was willing to acknowledge each of these points of view and try and get them on film, and he did. And so the miracle, uh, first of all, the acting is so great. Everyone is so great in that scene. Um, but the miracle is the editor. How he got that thing. And so Nathan describes it as three complete different points of view that were shot, you know, and that the editor called him one day and said, I figured out how to do this. We're gonna make it a 3-act play. We're gonna have each of these points of view in there, and each is gonna be its own act, as it were. And that's just brilliant, because if I were the editor, I think I would have gone to the bar and had 43 martinis and given up, but he didn't.
Jason is obviously your dance partner throughout most of the film, but that scene also gives you the chance to work with Caroline Aaron and Dolly DeLeon and the rest of the ensemble. But how much fun was it to work with those two other extraordinary performers?
Oh, it was just a hoot, a thrill. I've known Caroline a long time, and I just love working with her. And I never met Dolly before, but she is one of the warmest, most lovely women you could meet. And I just love the casting of that couple too, because it's it's opposite of what you would expect, because the vulnerable, sort of more fragile, more likely to give in of the couple is Caroline, who's a big, strapping dame in the best sense of the word. And Dolly, who's so tough and bordering on mean sometimes, I'm sorry, Dolly, is this teeny little lady that you would never think you'd be intimidated by, but you are. So I think that casting is brilliant.
I don't want to give away the end of the film, so if you haven't seen it yet, pause the interview. We'll try not to talk too much about spoilers, but it's such a beautiful final scene. And it's also ambiguous. I just wanted to ask you, not to kind of demystify what the film is doing at the end, but what do you see as the future for these two characters?
I think it's very, like everything about the film, going to be very fluid. I think they love each other and in some ways are in love with each other, but they're certainly from different times of life and different worlds. So what the sort of long range future will be, I don't know, except that I know they'll be in each other's lives.
Before I let you go, Carol,
Gonna go through, I think it's gonna go through a lot of changes. You,
I
you
would
know what
think
I mean?
so. Yeah, I would
A
think
lot
so.
a lot of phases.
Before I let you go, I just want to ask you something about this film season more broadly. Many folks know you from your time on Broadway and on tour with Wicked as Madame Morrible. How does it feel to see the film be so well received and to kind of be in the conversation at the time when this musical that you spent so much time with is getting to wider audiences, global audiences?
Well, I could just say that I'm really grateful for all my time with Wicked. I had never been in a musical, and it's a big mother of a musical to be in the best possible way. And I met so many wonderful young people that I worked with, and so many Galindas and Elphabas, and they're my friends to this day. And I have not seen the movie, but that's just because I have a little trouble going to a movie theater still. But I will go, and I can't wait to see it because it looks amazing to me. So I'm excited about it. I have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet either. No,
But doesn't it look great?
it does.
Yeah. So I can't wait. But it's interesting, because it was a big part of my life for many, many 4 years. I was with it, and I love it.
Amazing. Carol Kane, congratulations on Between the Temples. Congratulations on the nominations and the wins you're receiving. It's an extraordinary performance. Thank you for talking to Gold Derby today.
So kind. Thank you so much.